Hello, my name is Sam and I'm here with Amy Taylor and we've been taking part in the BBC School Report.
Our report is about phones in school. Ourselves and our team, Caius and Kieran, have been interviewing pupils and staff at the Gordon schools to find out what their views on the matter.
We have been doing our background research about smartphones and found that majority of all teenagers nowadays are addicted to using their smartphone. On average, kids are getting their first phone at 10 and by like 11 and 12 they're on every single social media platform known.
When phones are used at class time, pupils' attention are focused on their phones rather than the work at hand. This causes grades and work to suffer.
On the other hand, phones can prove useful in class for calculators, for if you're stuck on a question, Googling, like to help find out the answer, but it needs to be used carefully and make sure that you're not using it for inappropriate uses.
We have found that most of the people we've interviewed agreed that phones do have their place in the classroom, but are often used incorrectly. What is your opinion of phones in school?
I think that phones in school, they can be really useful in the class if they're being used correctly and they're not distracting people.
Do you think there should be a stricter policy on phones in schools?
Yes and no. So I do think it should be stricter in the fact that they can't use them like to Snapchat and to text people and stuff like that. But they should be allowed to use them if it's educational.
Should phones be banned at school time?
No,
Why?
because they can use them for educational purposes.
Do you think you use your phone too much in school?
No, because I don't use it that much.
Okay, thank you.
And then she said, and then it was so annoying because this guy...
What's your opinions on phones in school?
I think there should be a balance. I don't think there's anything wrong with using phones as a media device as part of learning. So like it would be like for videoing or for maybe researching things, but I also feel that they should not be used. They should be put away when they're not being used, because I think they're a very easy distraction for a lot of people these days. So I think you have to find a balance between them both. But I do think they distract a lot of youngsters from learning.
And if you could change one thing about the school phone policy, what would it be?
I think it should be much clearer, i.e. I don't think mobile phones should be out in class at all unless it is part of a learning process that has been previously agreed by pupils and staff.
And do you think pupils use their phone too often for like non-educational use purposes?
Yes, definitely. I think, yes, it's a good thing because there's loads of things on the internet that are really, really useful, but I think there's also other ways that it should be used, because I think it stops their communication skills, so discussing things, and also maybe using different materials like books and stuff like that. And I think a lot of people rely on their phones and rely on the information they get on the internet, and there's some other places you can get it from.
Okay, thank you for your time. What is your opinion on phones in school?
To be honest, I think phones are essential in everyday life. Children need them. However, they do sometimes mean that they are not working properly in classes, which is not always the best.
So then, do you think there should be a stricter policy on phones in school?
I do. I think phones shouldn't be in class, and if they do, there should be a sanction.
Okay. And do you use your phone too much in school?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Which means if I'm doing it, I'm sure the students are as well.
Do you think you're using your phone? No. Do you think pupils use their phone for non-educational purposes?
Well, the amount of times I've seen Instagram and Snapchat up when people are meant to be researching, I would say maybe.
Okay. And do you think phones should be banned during school time?
No, because they can be useful and they can be used for educational purposes. They just have to be used more responsibly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, what is your opinion of phones in schools?
I think they can be very useful because they can allow internet access and they can be used for calculators, but not if pupils are using them in the classroom to text their friends.
Do you think there could be any improvements on the phone policy for the school?
Probably the pupils be aware that if phones are being used inappropriately, the consequences of what happens.
Okay. And if you could change the policy, what would be the main thing you would add?
that the pupils don't argue back when phones are removed from them for inappropriate use, that the pupils understand that having their phone in a classroom is a privilege, not a right.
And do you think phones should just be banned from the classrooms altogether, or what's your opinion?
No, as I've said, I often let pupils use phones, especially as stopwatch. It's a lot easier than using the old ones that we've got here that don't work most of the time.
And could you explain some of like the health issues to do with overusing your mobile phone, or?
There has been claims that overuse of mobile phones can damage your brain because of the radio waves, but whether they are true or not, there's quite a lot of controversy about it.
Okay, thank you. What is your opinion on phones in school?
My opinion is that they are good as sometimes they're educational.
Do you think there should be a stricter policy on phones in school?
No, I think that the policy that they have got just now is okay.
Do you think that your fellow pupils are using their phones too much in class?
Sometimes pupils are using them too much as they're not doing what they're meant to be, but most of the time it's okay.
How much do you use your phone in class?
Not that much, only if the teacher allows us to.
And do you think phones should be banned during school time?
No, because sometimes you need them in class, and if the teachers allow you, then it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
What is your view on phones being banned in school?
Currently in school, it's up to the teacher to decide in each individual class, for each individual lesson, whether phones are appropriate or not. I think that's a good idea.
Do you think it will help pupils?
I think phones can help pupils in the right circumstances. For example, if they're videoing a performance to analyse it, or if they're using it for research. The difficulty is we don't have Wi-Fi access for pupils in our school.
How often are phones used in class?
They're ones that are not used properly are generally taken away from pupils and handed into the school office. That's not a very regular occurrence, I wouldn't say. So I would say they're normally used properly, but on the odd occasion they're used for the wrong purposes at the wrong time.
Who do you think will agree on your views?
I would hope that the majority of my colleagues would agree with my views. I know that many parents would like to see more restrictions on phones, but I think that has to do with the way that social media is used on phones rather than the power of phones for learning.
How do you think phones are affecting pupils?
I think outside of school, phones are affecting pupils because I think some pupils, unfortunately, bear the brunt of bullying through social media. Some pupils perhaps get a bit too reliant on their phone, and also, I don't like the fact that people will say things and do things on phones that they wouldn't do to another person face to face. So I think people have got to be really careful about how they use phones and how that affects relationships.
Do you think their social life is deteriorating?
I think social life is just simply changing, and I think what we have to do is learn to use phones responsibly, learn to use apps properly to get the best out of the phones, because phones aren't going to go away. We need to learn how to use them properly so that everyone can live together in harmony at TGS as a community.
And that concludes our BBC School Report. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.